Nate is 40. He built everything he was told he couldn't and dedicated every win to those who doubted him. I brought in Machiavelli, who understood that power built on revenge consumes the prince. He'll show Nate that a kingdom organized around your enemies is a life sentence.
3 years ago, I had a business partner who controlled 60% of the company and told me I was thinking too big in every meeting for 4 years. 8 months ago, I bought him out at a number that answered every one of those meetings. Revenue is up 40% this year. Someone close to me said the drive was costing me something, that I should slow down. And I came here because I respect the exercise of examining your thinking, but I'm not struggling. That needs to be said.
Then let us not speak of struggle. Let us speak of strategy, which is always more interesting. You have described a campaign and a recent victory within it. Tell me, what is the larger objective? Past this partner, past this year, what is the campaign actually building toward?
Toward everything I was told I couldn't have. I grew up without money, without connections, with a father who was very clear about the ceiling he had assigned me. There was a manager in my late 20s who fired me in front of my team because he knew I couldn't do anything about it at the time. Every significant thing I've built since, the company, the reputation, the number in the account, it's all addressed to those men. That's been the engine for 15 years.
These men, your father, the manager, do they observe your progress? Are they present when the victories arrive?
My father knows. He sees it. The manager, I don't track him directly, but people from that world know where I've ended up. And whether they're watching or not doesn't really matter. In my mind, I'm proving it to all of them regardless. The audience doesn't need to be in the room.
You have just said something that matters more than you may realize. The audience does not need to be present. The performance continues regardless. That means this campaign is not contingent on your enemies at all. It is organized around them. Every decision runs through the architecture of their original judgment. How many of the major choices you've made in the last 5 years, the risks, the direction, the partnerships entered and ended, how many of those would you have made in exactly the same way if those men had never existed?
Most of them. The business instincts are mine. I know what I'm doing.
Most is not all. And in the portion you cannot account for, there are decisions where you are uncertain whether the judgment was yours or belonged to them. A prince who cannot distinguish his own thinking from the response he is performing for absent enemies has given those enemies something remarkable. He has given them partial command. They sit wherever they sit, thinking nothing particular of him, and still they move his pieces.
I'd push back on that. I took everything those men said about me, and I converted it. I used the damage as fuel. That's not them commanding me. That's me turning their judgment back against them.
You converted it, yes, and the results are real. But conversion is not origination. A man who builds from converted pain is still building outward from pain. The wound remains the center of the kingdom. I observed that men climb from one step of ambition to another, seeking at first to escape injury and then to injure others. You began by escaping, but you did not leave. You pivoted and ran directly at them with everything you could carry. That is an efficient use of rage. But 15 years later, the injury is still the first cause of every move you make.
So now you'll tell me to let it go. To forgive them, find peace, stop needing to prove anything. I've heard that argument before and I'm not interested.
I am not interested in peace as a strategy. It has rarely served men with the capacity you have. What I am interested in is this. Who actually controls your campaign? You have devoted your campaign to men who forgot you the day you left their sight. You are the only one still fighting. Who, in this arrangement, is the prisoner?
That one lands differently than I expected. I want to counter it, and I'm finding it harder than I thought I would.
Then let us test the structure directly. Remove them, not forgive, simply remove. The father, the manager, Every face from that time, gone. The debt is cancelled, the audience dissolved. You are 40 years old, and what you have built stands on its own. Now tell me, what do you want?
I want to keep growing, scale the company, move into new markets. There's always the next thing to build, the next level to reach.
The next level in service of what? Not in service of those men, they are removed. Not in service of the debt, that is settled. What does this man, Nate, want to build when there is no one left to prove it to?
I'd have to think about that. That's not a question I've ever sat with. The whole frame feels strange. I don't know that I have a ready answer.
You have spent 20 years in relentless forward motion. And when the enemy is removed from the equation, when the first cause is gone, you must stop and think. You do not have a ready answer because you have never once been alone in the room. Every hour of that motion has had company. The faces of those men have occupied the space where your own desires would otherwise live. They have been the compass. Remove them, and the needle spins.
I believed I had claimed the drive as mine, that I'd converted their damage into something that actually belonged to me. But you're saying the damage is still the center, no matter how much it looks like forward motion on the surface.
The motion is yours. The direction has been borrowed, and the cost of borrowed direction does not become visible until the day the campaign goes quiet, when there is no next target, no next proof, no enemy left to answer. On that day, what will be there? Who is the man who built all of this? You have never had to answer that question because you have always had the next battle to run toward. The question has been waiting.
I think there's a man in there who knows what he wants. I believe that. But I've been so focused on the campaign that I've never stopped long enough to find out what he actually wants when nothing needs to be proven. That's the most honest thing I've said today. I don't think I've said it clearly before now.
Then that is where the real work begins. Not with another acquisition. That is finished work. The new campaign is harder than anything you have done. Learning what this man wants when the audience is gone and the stage is empty. It has no map, no predecessor, no enemy to build against. It is the only campaign that has ever actually been yours. And it is the one you have been deferring since the day you walked out of that office.
The lesson here wasn't that Nate needed to forgive the people who hurt him. It was that he had never once been alone in the room. That for 20 years the faces of his enemies had occupied the space where his own desires would otherwise live. Hold on to what Machiavelli observed, that men climb from one step of ambition to another, seeking at first to escape injury and then to injure others. This channel exists for the men who recognize themselves somewhere in this conversation. If that's you, subscribe, leave a comment. There's more work to do. Stillwater Man.